This is sad. It's very sad. The standard American diet, kind of sad. Have you looked at Lunchables recently? Do you know what we're feeding that generation, our preteen, teenage generation? You can blame it on big food. I mean, it's Kraft Heinz. Used to be Kraft Oscar Mayer. So yes, it's got the big food names behind it. And let me just take a minute and review some of the, see if I can find that. I had that up here just a second ago. The standard, the frequently asked questions. I'll see if I can get to those in just a minute. Anyhow, Consumer Reports asked the USDA to remove Lunchables from school lunches. Why? Because of sodium, lead, phthalates, chemicals that cause problems. My concern is something different. I'm looking at where the disease, where the damage is actually occurring most frequently. And it's not so much with lead and sodium, it's with carbs. They're, depending on who you look at, it's either 28 grams of carbs or 36 grams of carbs. This is what we're giving the first generation that has significant levels of diabetes as teenagers. And I don't mean type 1 diabetes, I mean type 2 diabetes. Up until this generation, type 2 diabetes was something that boomers got, old people got. Once you got to your 50s, 60s, 70s, now the teenagers are getting it. Fashion content creator Emmy Fry8 said, you know what? I actually lost weight. And what I did was 4 to 6 Lunchables-like meals every day. And I use Lunchables and I'm calling them girl dinners. Our culture's got some problems here, but at least there's hope. Jimmy Donaldson, you may know him as Mr. Beast. Logan Paul, KSI. They're coming to the rescue. Whew. Good thing, isn't it? They're bringing a thing called Lunchly, which is a healthy alternative to Lunchables. Or so they say. The options are turkey and cheese sandwiches, nacho chips, and everybody's favorite, pizza. Pizza. When it boils down to it and you do a content comparison, they're really about the same, except for one thing, and that is Logan Paul's Prime drink. It brings a lot more sodium than the drink associated with the good old Lunchables. Logan Paul's bringing some other stuff to the mix as well, you know, especially with that drink Prime. And Jimmy Donaldson, you might just want to take a look at, you know, a little bit deeper at who you're hanging around with. Logan Paul's Prime has a $68 million lawsuit from the manufacturer. You see, he signed a contract to buy a huge amount of Prime. Evidently, he's not been able to sell it because he's not buying what he signed to buy. So they're suing him for damages. And they're not the only guys suing him for damages. The U.S. Olympic Committee is suing him for damages. So, you know, everybody these days likes to hate on everybody else. And I'm sure there's a lot of U.S. Olympic Committee haters out there. I know from several other issues going on that have happened in the past few years. But you got to ask you got to look at the details. They're suing him for things that they've trademarked, like the words Olympics and Olympians. Come on, that's kind of self-obvious. Logan Paul doesn't own those trademarks, does he? So anyhow, are they really saving our current generation with healthier alternatives? Well, it's clear what they're trying to save that generation from. Lunchables has some problems. And because of my own tech problems, pardon me, because of my own tech problems, I'm challenged to find the frequently asked questions for Lunchables. But the frequently asked questions were things like, is it safe? And the answer was, well, yes, it's safe by our standards. Another, here we go. The Lunchables, this is by the Lunchables group. This is by Kraft, formerly Kraft Oscar Mayer, now Kraft. Hold on just a second now. Kraft Heinz. So, which safety and quality standards do Lunchables follow? Nothing is more important to Kraft Heinz than the quality and safety of our food. All Lunchable products are safe to eat. They meet strict safety standards set by the government. Do Lunchables contain lead? Lunchable products are made with wholesome ingredients. They're reviewed for their safety and suitability in accordance with FDA and USDA requirements. We also have our own intense and rigorous standards. We're proud of Lunchables. And there's a group, a consumer group, that's claiming that we have a lot of lead. So how much sodium is in Lunchables? It varies from product to product. The Turkey and American Cracker Stacker with treat has about 620 milligrams of sodium. Again, I think I've looked at the lead issue. I've looked at the sodium issue. I'm still far more concerned about the carbs. So at the end of the day, it's really clear what Jimmy Donaldson and KSI and Logan Paul are trying to save that younger generation, their generation and younger, from. It's clear what they're saving them from, but it's not quite so clear what they're saving them for. Maybe Jimmy and Logan and KSI are just joining the ranks of big food, and they're just looking to make money off of unhealthy food. So you can blame big food. You can blame Jimmy Donaldson. You can blame Logan Paul. At the end of the day, though, I think we need to ask the question, where are we in that space? Where are we, the parents, and now my generation, the grandparents? What are we doing? We look at our generation, and they're the generation that's raising this group. We're the grandparents now. And it's really frustrating. It's a very helpless feeling to watch them feed our grandkids, watching our kids feed our grandkids this stuff. I use the stuff, it's a gentle misnomer. I used to be an occupational medicine doc for about 2 decades. And in occupational medicine, you study poisons, toxicology. Poisons are stuff that injures people, makes them sick. Our kids are feeding our grandkids poisons. It's sad, very, very sad. So that's it for my rant today. And as you can see, we're trying to not call it a rant, but today turned into a rant. I've got a lot of questions. Let me see how many I can see if I can deal with a few of them. Jesus, I see that you're on in the background. Feel free to help. We've got a new member. It looks like Goran's Kondrik. Thank you, Goran. We appreciate your membership. We appreciate you joining. Rick Folia, good morning from Georgia. So Rick, I'm in Georgia. I'm in Athens. Fortunately, we got skipped over in terms of the hurricane. Yes, it did come through, but it shimmied to the east, and we got the easy side of it. My family in Greenville-Spartanburg is out of power. Multiple households there out of power. And when you look at the state of Georgia, there's about 1 million people without power today. And had I been in South Carolina, I wouldn't have been able to do the show today. So I'm happy to be here. Let's look. So Ian Gorner. Hello from Newfoundland. Ian, I think you're the first Newfoundlander to join, and thank you so much. Now, Jesus is saying, "Hey, Doc, can you move to your right?" You know what? One day I'll get all this technology right, but obviously not today. I think you saw this most of the show. Sorry, or most of the monologue. Sorry about that. Okay. Zoe Girl from South Africa. Michael Pregler. Can't see but half. I got it, Michael. Thank you so much. And pardon me. If I didn't goof up something with the technology, you'd miss a lot of the entertainment value of the show, I think. Daphne, a member. Hello from Pleasant Hill, Missouri. Thank you so much for joining us, Daphne. Here we go. Odin the Night. So JMK is always asking really good questions. There was one about keto before, and I'll read the one here. Are there good or accurate biomarkers for intestinal microbiome inflammation? There are tons of biomarkers for inflammation. There is some overlap, for example, with cardiovascular as well as other types of inflammation. We, for example, will see patients like that have psoriatic arthritis. Their rheumatoid, their doc will be following them for their arthritis specialist will be following them for C-reactive protein. We'll be following C-reactive protein as well. Now, for intestinal microbiome inflammation, there's not so much of that kind of overlap. You will see overlap in terms of disease, but you don't see that much overlap in terms of two different specialists, myself as a prevention guy and the arthritis doc following the same kind of inflammation marker. Odin the Night. Thank you, Odin. I got it. I'll move to the right. Hopefully next time. And Jesus, thanks for saying, look, I was hooked on my talk. Okay. Good morning, Bama J. Good to see you. I hope you guys made it through that storm. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about in terms of the storm, Hurricane Helene was in the Gulf of Mexico yesterday and traveled up through Alabama, through Georgia, and into North and South Carolina early this morning. Traveled right over us. Okay. Jesus, do you see any good questions that we need to? Okay, so here's one from Vape King. Does the government set a good requirement? That's a really good point. Again, I've worked with government agencies on things like this. The lead requirement regarding food, it's impossible for the government to set practical requirements that's going to keep things like lead 100% out of things like food. So again, you're going to continue to see debate about stuff like that. I don't think we can. Here's where I'm going with it. We cannot rely on government alone. We cannot rely on the food manufacturers that are profit-based. I'm a capitalist myself. I think that capitalism is a heck of a lot better way to run a country than socialism. But then you've got problems with profit motive and big food and big pharma and some of the challenges that we're seeing here. At some point, parents and grandparents have to step up and say, it stops here. JMK, I wouldn't trust big food's nutritional research as far as I could throw them. Well, those that do trust big food Gosh, it's sort of like running out and, letting your 7-year-old run out in the street and trusting other drivers to avoid him or her. Okay, thoughts on BPC 157 for its healing properties. I'm not familiar with BP 157. Oh, here's a good point. And I'm having a tech issue. It's from Kinfolk. A lot of grandparents feed their grandchildren poison also. That's exactly what I'm saying, Kinfolk. Unfortunately, if we leave things up to the government, if we leave things up to big food, even if we leave things up to YouTube creators, we can get into big trouble, especially leaving these decisions on what to feed to our folks. Healthier Lunchable is a new idea, a low carb Lunchable. I would agree. So thank you so much, Dwight. Hi, Dr. Brewer. What's the status of the LP(a) drugs? I expect some to come to market. So let me thank you it's a great question, Dwight, and I'll take a couple of minutes to explain to go into some detail on that. LP(a) is really just it's a apoprotein, apolipoprotein. Now, a technical word, what the heck does that mean? It's the protein that surrounds, I've had this explanation several times. At my other studio, I've got a little bottle of water. It's got a bunch of olive oil in it. And the whole point is to show how, even if you shake that up, pretty soon all of that oil forms one big blob. And yes, that would cause a heart attack or stroke. It would block arteries and cause tissue damage in our body if that's what was going on. If we ate, for example, even just what we consider to be a healthy salad with olive oil, so what does the body do? How does the body prevent that from happening? It makes proteins, and these proteins form microscopic particles. There's two sides to these proteins. One side really is what we call lipophilic. It's fat-loving. The other side is what we call hydrophilic. It loves water. So you make a protein that's like that, and you put it in a solution that's got both water and fat, it's going to form these particles. That's what HDL is, high density lipoprotein. Quote, good cholesterol. It carries mostly cholesterol, by the way. LDL, same thing, low density lipoprotein. It's a protein with that lipid on the inside, the cholesterol on the inside. I'm not going to go further down one of the bunny holes, which would be ApoB. I am going to say, though, that LP(a) is a variation of the protein that makes LDL. Now, most of us have some form of it, and most of us have a little bit of it, but genetically, some of us have a whole lot of it. I've had people that in my practice, given what I do, you wouldn't be surprised to find out that I've got a lot of people with LP(a). LP(a) has been linked to increased cardiovascular risk. You see it increased in some genetic pools. For example, there's a French-Canadian genetic pool that has a lot of LP(a). And we're talking, depending on the numbers and the units that you look at, up to 5 to 7, 800, and some 1,000. Now, those kind of numbers, 500 and above, you tend to see calcification of the aortic valve. In addition, you see significant increased risk for heart attack and stroke. So we've known about that forever. Why haven't you heard about it? Because even though the medical community, has known about it forever, we also said, we as a group also said, well, we don't know what to do to fix it. So we're just not even going to test for it. We're not even going to talk about it to our patients. That is, in my mind, an error. I think it's too paternalistic. It's making decisions for patients that patients should be making for themselves. So we do look for LP little a, and we've got plenty of patients with LP little a. I can tell you the run of the mill garden variety LP little a values that we tend to see, 80 to 200, by far the most common. Labs will say anything over 40 is dangerous. It's not really. Uh, your typical person with 80 to 200 does not have significant increased cardiovascular risk until and unless they start developing prediabetes and diabetes. That's what to keep an eye out for. But still, as I mentioned, there are people that have 4 and 5 times those levels and do have significant risk. Those folks now have a drug on the horizon. They're called antisense drugs. Without getting too technical, basically what they're doing is they're fitting hand in glove with LP little a, that protein that I just described, that genetic variation of ApoB, the protein that makes LDL. They're not quite ready for prime time. When you look at them, there have been a lot of clinical trials using them, looking at them. Here's where they are. They're not showing huge danger or risk categories yet, but there have not been big enough numbers to know that for sure. One thing they do know for sure, even from these early studies, is that they will knock LP little a, that genetic variation of the ApoB, they will knock it way down, as in like 1/10 of the number that you saw before. There's another critical piece that we don't know yet, and that is, let's say we do knock that LP little a down. Does it really help? Does it decrease risk? We don't know that yet either. And in fact, you may say, well, that's sort of a theoretical question, Brewer. No, it's not. When we see people with LP little a, quite often the question becomes, as it is with the LDL, is LP little a acting as the fireman or the arson? And quite often, it's just not that clear. That's why this question of, does lowering LP little a really help? That question is a big deal. If you say, well, LP little a is, I haven't heard of it, and there's not many people with it. Again, I'm going to go back and remind you of something I said a minute ago. Doctors don't talk about it. Even most doctors are not familiar with LP little a. So think about it. If you haven't had a test for it, you should probably be tested for it, just so you'll at least know. Okay, let's see if we got some other questions. Ellen Duhan, is CIMT covered by Medicare? I haven't seen it covered by Medicare yet. I have seen plenty of folks that have gotten it covered with their insurance, but variation insurance, not standard Medicare. The vast majority of us, and here's the thing, Ellen, I wouldn't worry about whether it's covered by Medicare. I would just say, look, I'm going to pay $300, maybe $400 for it and get it done once a year. Just do it. I've paid cash for mine. Every one of my patients, well, not every one of them, about 80% of my patients, maybe more, have paid for theirs out of pocket. And then you have those groups, again, variant groups, small insurance groups that will pay for it. Roll Tide. Oh my gosh. I was worked. This is from Gary Teston, Roll Tide. Gary, I was in Alabama a couple of years for the project, the Alabama project, and actually loved it there. I have to tell you though, I can't say that I didn't enjoy it when the Georgia Bulldogs beat them. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Hey, Susie, you seeing any questions that we need to answer? Nope, I'm not either. Thank you so much. We've got a lot of interest, but mostly just casual comments. If you'd like deeper answers to something, join the membership. Jesus can tell you on Thursdays exactly how that works. We're actually even recording specific videos, shorts videos for people that are members that are asking questions. Thank you so much for your interest today. And don't let Tony the Tiger take over your dinner or your kids' dinner or their kids' dinner. And really don't let Mr. Beast either.